Hey, yo, what it div, y'all? Let's get right into it. I've been blessed by the spirit of harvest, not harvest now, not even just harvest past, but like harvest OG. I'm talking the version of harvest where you could do damn near anything you wanted while crafting, right? I'm talking about the version of harvest that created perfect items. Why was I blessed by this? Well, it's because I've been playing a lot of Torchlight lately. Even though I stopped making videos about it, I've still been playing, trying to get my Supreme Shot on 20. But I was possessed with this thought about why does the crafting feel so good in this system comparatively to how I felt about OG Harvest in PoE 1. And what I landed on is a problem that is neither one of those two systems' fault. It's the affixes in PoE. They are dated, very dated in more than one way, right? It's either they straight up do not give enough value to your character to be worth looking at, or they give value in the wrong slot and just shouldn't be there, right? It's not a thing that you even actively account for. It's just a thing to make the process more difficult when crafting an item. Both of these, I think, are really bad and need to be addressed. And so that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Now, before I get into it, like, comment, subscribe, all those good things if you rock with the video. Mostly comments, just because I like to see what you guys think. It's also worth noting, I want to see, points of dissension as well. If you guys have any that you think you're like, oh, but maybe, like, I like seeing how you guys feel about the things that I bring to the table here, right? Now, let's get into that. This idea of it being dated, it started with me realizing that in Torchlight, you actually have like harvest crafting right now. Harvest crafting got moved into Torchlight, and it's in a way that made me go, interesting, because I rock with the system there. I have no real complaints with it compared to my historical takes on Old Harvest, which is that it felt too easy. It felt like it circumvented a lot of the game. It felt like item printers didn't belong in PoE, and I had to take a step back. Because if I like an item printer in one game and dislike the item printer in another game, I have to be missing something between the two. Something core to the games that they're in to explain the difference. And that's when I realized that the difference is that in Torchlight, when I'm using that crafting, I'm not fixated on trying to get rid of bad modifiers, right? There are modifiers that don't work for my build, sure, right? Every item slot in all of these games, every ARPG will have modifiers that don't really work for your build, but they still at least feel like they belong there, right? I don't roll a weapon for my RT or PT axe build, for example, and complain that crit is on the weapon. I'm sad that I rolled crit because it could have been another mod that was actually useful for my character, but the crit itself belongs on weapons in case you were actually going to scale crit with that weapon, right? Now, stay with me. Why is resistance on a weapon? What does the resistance actually do for your weapon besides clog up a suffix? I will give you an answer. There's only one answer, and it's I just hit maps, my resistances are shot. That random 32 resistance on my weapon is keeping me capped at the moment, so I can keep playing the game, right? That random like 22 dex, it's keeping me above my dex requirement, so I can actually use my skill, right? That sums up the usefulness of these stats. But the crafting bench can do that. And there's a number of cases in the game already where the crafting bench puts on mods on an item that can't roll naturally onto it. For example, you can craft suppression on an armor chest piece if you needed just a little bit more suppression. Or, oh, you have this really nice sadist garb that you just got. You can craft PDR on it if you really need that little bit of PDR, even though it doesn't roll native to the gear piece. So if you are using these rolls to fill really specific gaps in your character, the crafting bench can do that. Why does my fossils have to do it? Why can't I roll it when I'm spamming essences? Why is it when I'm on the harvest bench reforging chaos, I'm seeing it, right? Like, that's the problem. Seeing modifiers that you don't need. I'm not, again, it's not just that they're bad, it's that they don't belong. We're talking about a weapon slot. Your weapon slot is offensive. Defensive mods are almost entirely pointless there. And I say almost because maybe someone out there is like, actually, I have a fantastic use for this one specific defensive mod. Okay, sure. Counterpoint. Let's look at a different modifier. Anybody ever make use of the modifier as a whole on any gear slot? Percentage reduced attribute requirements. When was the last time you looked at that mod and was like, I need this. I need it bad. And you cannot give me the answer of an item I'm trying to put in my offhand so I can level gems in it. It needs to be an actually active part of your gear, right? A thing you were actively trying to wear. Maybe it's relevant now with, say, like the new chest piece bases that have absurdly high air quotes, stat requirements. But even then, just get more stats on your character, because the reality is that you probably could have just used that suffix on getting more stats instead of getting attribute requirements. And so this brings me all the way back to that core point of the pool being outdated. It feels like as time goes on, as the game has progressed, as systems have been added, as stats have been added, as all sorts of things have been added to the game, GDG has only ever really updated portions of the modifier pool at a time, right? Like, you know, they did the update to flat elemental rolls and then essences, right? They did those together, but just that part of the system. You know, they only updated they updated the life rolls and as such updated the essences if needed, right? They do things like that, but they have never gone through and just looked and been like, you know, a lot of these stats were made back in like 2016 and the game doesn't really need them on gear anymore. And that's what made Old Harvest so good, is that you stopped interacting with so much of the detritus, so much of the debris just cluttering up your gear. It's the reason why I like it so much in Torchlight, because in Torchlight, even though it's the same idea of a system as what we had in Harvest Crafting, I'm not dodging modifiers that just straight up don't belong or straight up are just overly weak in the gear slot. No, the gear pool, the mod pool is more curated for the relevant gear type so that you can actually go, okay, these are the things that I actually want. We've reduced the bloat, reduced the amount of things that can go wrong, right? Really heavy emphasis on the things that can go wrong. If you remember when like the oppressor was added with the squire, the idea behind the oppressor was not to make a good shield. It was to make a shield that diluted the drop pool and the chantor pool so you couldn't just get squire out of it, right? I have a similar feeling about how I feel with these affixes. I feel like maybe these affixes were useful way back when, in a state of the game that honestly even predates me. I only started playing the game in Synthesis League, right? Maybe there was a state of the game pre 3.0, maybe even pre 2.0, where some of these stats were useful. However, we are going into 2025. These stats no longer have purpose. They need to go. And the only reason I'm actually talking about this is because I was also reminded by this blessing, by this spirit that I encountered, that PoE 2 is bringing a new like gear dropping system. And I wonder if that system is going to include, you know, them having redone the pools of things that can actually drop on items in a way such that it actually is useful and beneficial in most cases. Again, not talking about the niche cases and not talking about completely removing the stat altogether, because, well, I'm a build that doesn't need this chaos resistance roll at all, so why am I seeing it? But more specifically, just no one needs that attribute requirement. So hopefully that system has been updated going forward, right? We actually get it there, because this also definitely impacts the value of drops. And, you know, think about PoE 1, think about how often you ID rares and they're just absolute trash. It is almost certainly just because there are so many modifiers that don't do anything, whether it be, you know, they don't fill a need you currently have, or they just straight up shouldn't be there or are too inefficient for your build to even like almost consider in that slot. Now, I want to dedicate a subsection of this video to actually talk about some modifiers that I think are in the right place, but are just weak. Just like straight up, they're weak. You know, whether that be because they are either just raw underperforming, or because I think that their purpose has been moved elsewhere in the game. The first of which is definitely going to be leech modifiers on weapons, but also on other slots. Like I believe gloves roll with fizz attack leech in the prefixes as well. And so that's already a better candidate for your fizz leech than your weapon giving up one of the, flat fizz or percent fizz rolls that you need on your weapon in order to actually do good fizz damage with the weapon. Why do I need the leech roll there? I can get it on my gloves. I can get it on a jewel. I can get it on the tree. Like there are so many places I can get it. Why is it still on the weapon, right? That might not be all that great. Alternatively, they could give us a different version of the leech on the weapon, right? It could be like a percentage of that leech is instant, or it could be that that leech is, capped a little differently. Who knows? The GGG loves adding intricate systems. I'm just thinking about like how you could go about it. Or you end up with things like the life on kill, mana on kill modifiers that exist. Another case of why a lot of those are actually just far too small to actually matter in the grand scheme of things. And also, again, are probably modifiers that were added in a time where we didn't have good things like the amount of leech access we have, the fact that we have instant leech, the fact that recovery sources of all of these resources has also gotten better over time, right? We don't actually need these affixes anymore. I think that overall, to keep this from going too long, I feel like PoE's modifier system needs to be updated. It's why I called it outdated at the start of the video. It very much reeks of design decisions made many, many years ago and still impacting a game that we played today, right? And now I'm not going to pretend that this is a small task. I have overhauled stat systems before. That is a lot of work to look at an entire stat system and redo it. And I imagine that's something that they are doing in PoE 2. I'm mostly highlighting it because I want to see it done in PoE 1. I want there to be better access to crafting. And it was just me realizing that it's not the system's fault, like systems of crafting, right? It's not the fault of how fossils or essences or harvest work, right? The fault lies with these mods that just pollute the pool. That's the core of the thought. And it just, it took playing other games. I highly recommend playing other games, you guys. Sometimes you'll just see something in a different light when you've encountered something elsewhere that might give you perspective into why a thing in our favorite game, PoE 1, is not quite up to the standard that it could be, just because we never really looked at it from this other angle. That's it for me. If you rock the idea, let me know. If you've got counterpoints, let me know as well, right? Because I might miss something. Maybe you're just like, wait a minute, but these mods actually do have a use case that actually really means something. Or even if you could provide me context, honestly, with what it used to be like in the past, that would also be appreciated, right? Because that's just stuff from before me, right? I started in 3.6. Maybe these stats were, like I said, maybe they were useful before 2.0. I don't know. These are things that I know nothing about. I just live with the repercussions of them still existing because of, like, I guess they always have existed, so they must continue to exist, right? Like, that's where my perspective comes from. And so if there's perspective that, like, gives me better insight on how these modifiers like actually matured and grew, I'm all for it. I'm all ears, right? Anyways, mandatory plug of the stuff in the link in the description, right? I have a Twitch and a Discord down there. You can come hang out with the community in the Discord, or you can come see me live on Twitch when I am streaming. As we prepare, which, by the way, we will be streaming when the announcement stream comes out on Thursday for PoE 2, because we've all been waiting very anxiously for that information. So, make sure you do stop by and check that out if you want to see my thoughts on it live before I talk about anything here on the channel in terms of a video format. And thank you guys for listening. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.